As for sustainability, it was actually a personal journey that I started around 2 or 3 years ago, where I really became aware of my own actions and the impact that I could be making. And unfortunately, with the company I was with at the time, I didn't really feel empowered to then take that and apply it in the job and the role that I had. So coming over to Deloitte, really the first time in my career, I think, was where I really felt like I could start applying that and making an impact with what I was doing with my role. So it became really natural that the FinOps I was already doing for my job just carried over into sustainability.
Awesome.
Hello, folks. I am Bindu Sharma. I am with FireEye. It is now known as Trellix. We have a fairly mature FinOps establishment in our company. So we, as a team, last year we went to reInvent, and there AWS was all about sustainability. They mentioned they have introduced a new sustainability pillar. So that's when it clicked in our company. So we came back, we socialized that with our executive team, and now from Q3 of this year, it will be part of our company OKR. So we'll start calculating the carbon footprints, because as I mentioned, we are fairly established in our FinOps practice. We have most of our optimization automated. So it's now just adding the carbon footprint calculation to what we already have. So hopefully we'll start with the big bang. We'll see.
Eli.
Yeah. Hello everyone. I'm Eli Mansoor. I'm from Tel Aviv, Israel. Till 2 weeks ago, I was with AWS. I was business development for Graviton instances. So I've supported a lot of customers save on the power that they use for their EC2s. I left to start my own business, consulting business to support customers with optimizing their cloud agreements and FinOps. And we'll see an example later on how FinOps and GreenOps comes together. So this is how I help in both angles, save money and save on CO2 emission.
Right. So you use the word GreenOps. That was a term new to me. Amanda, can you kind of level set and help us understand what that means?
Yes. So GreenOps, as it pertains to FinOps, to me, is really a fourth lever. So you've got cost, speed, and quality, and now sustainability. And what that really means is where FinOps is about cost and usage, transparency, optimization, and efficiency, now we've got carbon, transparency, optimization, and efficiency. And maybe even more importantly, it's also a culture bringing responsibility around sustainability.
Bindu, a question for you. Is sustainability and FinOps the same thing?
Yes and no. They do intersect. We all know, we are FinOps practitioners, what are the roles of FinOps. But the remediation part of all the cost optimization, right? So when we run all those initiatives, we are making impact somehow. We are making that carbon footprints are lowered at a workload level, going to your cloud infrastructure, and that at the global level. So that's why I'm saying yes and no, because GreenOps is calculating footprint, it has carbon footprint, you need to define your own metrics to measure that. There are different drivers. It has become now global responsibility. But the actions that you take are the free FinOps action where, okay, I'm going to do remediation and it's going to impact in my GreenOps journey. So both yes and no.
All right. Thank you. So one of the trends that we've seen in the market is, big companies or even small companies committing to some sort of a benchmark for carbon emissions or sustainability, where they'll say, by such and such a date, we'll have X percentage in reduction. As FinOps practitioners, Eli, how can we help move the needle to achieve those sorts of aspirational goals?
Yeah. So first, each company is where it is today. So each one has its contribution to CO2 emission, and this is the starting point. And now, what do we do? How can we move the needle? So I think we speak a lot about automation and waste. I think automating the waste removal is kind of step one, which we all need to overcome. And then comes the next projects. Yeah, some can look at, okay, should we look at processors? Yeah, you have an option to select processors now, like Graviton instances in the case of AWS, and also the AMD processors that contribute less to carbon emission. This can be a project that we can pick. Everyone is using Kubernetes. Yeah, let's look at the pod utilization and the resource utilization. This can be another project. And GPUs, if you're using into AI, ML, yeah, the graphic cards also have great impact on carbon emission, and this is another area to look at.
All right. Bindu, you mentioned automation, and you just spoke on automation. How do you connect those between like a GreenOps practice or sustainability?
Yeah, that's a good point there. So Eli talked about all the ways we optimize. So to accelerate the journey, we need to accelerate the optimization journey, the usage optimization journey, and that will help your GreenOps journey. We can, all the usage of...
Oh, no, sorry.
Sorry, I'm just writing.
All the usage optimization that we are, actions that we are taking, if somehow we can automate that whole process and get there sooner, and at the same time start developing some metrics around your GreenOps, your carbon footprint calculation, and set up some baseline around that. So when your automation is flowing for the usage and your matrix is developing to calculate the carbon footprint that you are saving by those automation efforts. So I would say get to the automation journey as soon as you can.
All right. So one thing that's a practical question that I've had is that there's data out there on how to view, especially something like CO2 emissions. Eli, you have some slides that you can show us. How have you gone through that and done some of that work?
Yeah. So actually we have an example here of a customer that is into ML inference and ML modeling. And we can see that they were highly using like 200K instance hours of P instances on AWS. And they started a journey to migrate from P to G instances. Yeah, both have graphical have GPUs. So that's a reasonable shift to do. So from 200K instance hours to around 100K instance hours of G instances. Now, it started with a FinOps perspective. Yeah, these guys wanted to save money. Yeah, so we can see the shift from around 60K to 15K. Yeah, the price went down with this shift, fourth of the cost. If you compare P to G, you'll see that this is the difference. It required some engineering work. Yeah, so there is a project. You see that it takes time, but there is a good ROI for such a project. Now, how is this relate to sustainability and GreenOps? Yeah. So if we pull the data that Bindu said that they will do automatically, here it's not the case. I had to pull the data and craft to show the impact of the savings on carbon emission footprint, then you see that back in December, they were contributing 1,700 kilograms of CO2 every month. The shift, because there is a shift in GPU cards from the V100 to the T4, who consume much less energy, we see that this move not only helped save 79% on the cost, it's also saved 70% on the CO2 emission. Yeah. Now you would say, hey, are these instances provide the same performance? You know, have we lost anything? So actually the contrary is the correct, because the G instances turned out to provide more performance, and the customer could do more inference in the cloud. So less cost, less CO2 emission, and higher performance.
Amanda, we haven't gotten to you yet on this question. What do you view, the FinOps practitioner role in achieving a GreenOps type of work environment?
Critical.
Right.
And honestly, the surface has really only been scratched with these examples of automation and everything of what we can do. I do think that I would be remiss if I actually didn't turn that back to our cloud service providers. We can and should move the needle, of course, but there is still that underlying infrastructure that they're providing and that they'll need to do their best on as well, so that we can further move it more than what we can.
So Eli, a question for you. How do you view, and feel free anybody to chime in, how do you feel that the providers stack up around measuring sustainability?
So I think they all do kind of their steps to, let's say, first utilizing renewable energy. Each cloud vendor has its commitment for using carbon-free energy, which is one, like by AWS and Azure by 2025 and GCP by 2030. And they all also do their steps in order to expose the data on CO2 emission to their customers. I think it's early days, early steps, and there is much more to do as the customers will ask for this data. I would compare it as if any of you used to use Cost Explorer like 5 or 6 years ago, and it was kind of hard to get to any actionable insights out of it. So I think maybe we are in the early days of this carbon reports, and probably it will evolve as customers will demand more and more accurate and granular data from the vendors.
Right. So Bindu, question for you. If you're new to GreenOps and you're just starting out, how do you learn more about sustainability? How do you really get started?
Sure. In FinOps, actually, we have a working group right now established. We are ready to publish our first Sprint Zero plan, the whole proposed plan. It will wait for the foundation's approval. We are already deciding we have already decided actually upcoming 2-3 sprints. We are going to define the terms that will make, as coming from FinOps, we know talking the same language with the engineer or to the finance, it's very critical. So we are going to define the terms. We are going to define some metrics that you should start measuring around going forward. So we have a good structure laid out for upcoming sprint, but we are always looking for neurons. So please come, join. We meet every Friday, 8 a.m. California, so Pacific Standard Time. That's my time, so please do the calculation. So I'm taking my time because in our at my work, Friday is a no meeting day. So I remember that time very specifically. Friday I have to dial in. So that's where we meet, and this is the whole group, and many are sitting there.
Right.
So please, we are looking for contribution. We have come up so far just by discussing our experience, our thoughts. Nothing was handed over to us. So we are always looking for new ideas, new spin on what our thought process is.
Right.
I don't encourage that.
I'm going to add something there. I think we also have some very ambitious and lofty goals for our upcoming sprints. So please come join us and help us because we really want to take this far.
Yeah, shout out to the Slack channels for you guys to join in and join the discussion. So kind of last formal question, then we'll get to a QA if we have time for it. So I'm a practitioner. If I know nothing about GreenOps and FinOps as a cultural shift, how would you start? What would you tell me as advice to start to encourage sustainability in my practice?
Okay, I will start there. Just a couple things. So it depends. If you're real new, you haven't even chosen your cloud service provider yet, I highly encourage you to maybe make sustainability one of those decision points in selecting one. So look at what they're doing and try and choose the one that's aligning to your own organization's goals as well around sustainability. If you're already in the cloud, as we already mentioned, there's a ton that you can do within regions, within automation, and could go on forever. And so really, honestly, leveraging the community in knowing where to go with that is a great start. And one more point, I highly encourage everyone to ask the questions and understand and ask key questions of the data that the CSPs are providing so that you can understand it. And sometimes they measure those emissions differently, right? So it might not be apples to apples. So if you understand the data, which I know takes time and effort, but that's why we have a community also to help us with that, then you can really make those decision points for yourself as well as for your organization and set your goals accordingly. And then that also actually helps the cloud service providers then set their goals based off of what we, the consumer, are needing.
Awesome. Bindu.
I would say experience with our organization, where we are in our FinOps journey. As I mentioned, we have kickstarted this initiative. I have all the data available from the usage optimization. So if you are in that phase, I would recommend set up the baseline metrics for the carbon footprint calculation. Start publishing them. Go and talk to your executive leadership so they know what goals to set, and also announcing their goals, because it's a customer impact initiative also, like showing, oh, we are a green company. Or it's if you are, if not a public company, you can make it as a investment impacting, because investors are asking, do you have any sustainability goals set up? So set up those metrics, socialize those with your executive leadership, inform them, because educate them that how you are planning and perceiving this whole sustainability initiative for the organization, and help them to again socialize globally. So setting it early on.
All right. Eli, what advice would you offer?
So I echo everything that was said, but just as an example, if I take this example, is that something that this customer will do is that they had great achievements from cost. It led to the understanding that it brought great value on sustainability and GreenOps, and then the marketing team of this company is jumping on the opportunity because they have data and they can brand what they do with kind of a GreenOps stamp. So that's kind of a next step. So it starts with the understanding that you can make an impact, and then see how you can leverage it internally and outside of the organization to maybe bring more business to your company.
All right, thanks. So I think that's all the time we have for our general discussion we have. And we'll open up for questions. How much time do we have left for questions?
We have 9 minutes.
9 minutes, all right.
You gotta unmute me now. All right. Ooh, it's really loud. Okay, I saw one back here first. Okay, who's raising their hand back here? Oh, it's you. There we go.
So that data on CO2 emissions per unit of cloud consumption that you had. It was, I guess, second from the right. Yeah, CO2 emissions per hour. Where is that coming from? Are the providers publishing that on like a bulk API rate card kind of basis?
This I took from a GitHub page that has all the GPU cards per cloud vendor, per region, and then it gives the how much carbon emission each one has. So it's not automated, manual, but Bindu will solve the Bindu team will solve it, and then we will all benefit from that. So currently it's manual.
All right, I saw you. It was right here, right? Oh, yeah, here we go.
I have a question. So previously you were mentioning that one of the first steps to kick off this practice in the organization would be essentially set up a set of goals and introduce them to the management team or like executive team. Like, can you give an example of such goals? Like, what do they look like?
One.
This is what I'm planning because, as I mentioned, we are kicking this off in as part of Q3 OKR. We have the utilization data available on the cloud usage. So setting up some baseline metrics, as I mentioned, and giving the forecast of how do we want to progress. Maybe do not be very aggressive initially, and then how do we want to progress in upcoming years, or years actually, not even quarters, in upcoming years. Because right now we are AWS heavy shop. We are planning to move into other clouds. So you need to make sure that you are gathering all the data for all the cloud. You just don't want to get everything for AWS and then you're lagging behind GCP. So just be very methodical in your the mindset that, okay, I'll do a step approach, I'll set up the matrix, and then I'll try to achieve those in this much time frame while you are making sure that you are covering whatever your cloud footprints are. It becomes then cloud agnostic. So that's what I would recommend.
All right, any other questions for this wonderful panel while we have them? Oh, hey, yo, over here. Coming at you.
Just to follow up on the question that he had about where are you getting the cloud, the carbon saving emissions rate card? So is that just the GitHub page that you had mentioned? Is that just AWS specific, or do you think there is information available for Azure and GCP as well?
Yeah, it's not AWS specific. It's actually a GitHub page for ML CO2. Okay. It's called, and then you can see all GPU cards, regions, cloud providers, so you can, fill in your data and then get this information.
Okay, thanks.
Quickly, if I can add to that, there is an open source cloudcarbonfootprint.org available that you can utilize, and AWS has now added the sustainability pillar. And Eli mentioned about the heartbreaks with the Cost Explorer, but now they have improved. And if you go into their instance selection page, you will see they're also publishing the carbon footprint of those different instance types. So now data is becoming widely available, but that data is estimated. It's not exact, so be mindful of that. Exactly.
Yeah, so they don't go into the details. We have an emissions dashboard from Azure, but that doesn't go into the details of the VM types.
Yeah, resource level. Right. Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
All right, we have a couple of questions over here. And as I'm traveling across the room, Friday mornings, 8 o'clock a.m. Pacific, California for Bindu's time is a sustainability.
Perfect plug.
Yes. Duplicate questions in all of your brains. Okay, hold on. Here, Mark.
Just one quick point on the carbon calculation and the output from the vendors. So what you have to take into context is that the AWS figures that they publish in their carbon calculator do not include their Scope 3 emissions. They only include their Scope 1 and 2, which means they're a factor of 6 to 8 out. So don't pay any attention whatsoever to the figures that they publish currently today in their carbon calculator. It's complete rubbish, unless you apply a random factor yourself to a calculation to try and get it accurate. Microsoft are more accurate. They're including Scope 3, and they've got an 87% coverage so far, allegedly, on their calculations. But just watch out, you can't compare apples for apples right now at all. There are no accurate calculations whatsoever.
Thank you, Mark. You are a savior.
I was going to say, so that wasn't a question, but a statement. Mark, we'll let it slide. We'll let it slide. I'm kidding. I'm just giving you a bad time. All right, who else do we have any questions? Oh, right up front. Hold on.
Do we anticipate that the providers are going to start giving this as part of their cost and usage, like on the curve? Are we going to start seeing these types of measurements, like specific to a customer's usage?
So I actually asked that question very, very recently, and I think that's like maybe 30 minutes ago. So I think that's one thing that the cloud service providers would actually benefit from hearing from this community, is that this is something that overall people do care about, and we're a bunch of nerds. We want data. Show us, because what we can measure, we can improve. So I think that's actually a great opportunity for this community to reach out and get in front of your TAM or whoever and shoot an email and say, what are you doing for sustainability? Like, what kind of data do you have? Because I would love personally to see a column in the CUR that says estimated carbon footprint output, but I think we're not quite there yet.
And I honestly don't know if it'll end up being the CUR. I think it'll end up being a tool they develop or generate and build based off of what we're saying we want to see.
You don't want another column in the CUR?
I would love. I just don't think
There's
that's
so many.
what's going to happen.
And
Please
then-
prove me
I
wrong.
couldn't help it.
If you hear me, prove me wrong.
2 years after, it will get to the core.
All right, I'm up here now so I can see people a little bit better. Any more questions? Oh, yeah. Let me just check time real quick. Oh, no, you're good. We have 1 minute.
Perfect. So just a quick comment. Vikram and I, we are coming from Microsoft on the Azure cost management. We definitely hear the feedback. And
See?
just
See?
quick
It worked.
acknowledgement.
Where's the other two or three or four?
That was the right last thing to say on the last minute of this panel.
Very nice.
Just a second. I don't want anybody to go anywhere yet. Before we say goodbye to this panel, I just wanted to get a couple little quick updates. Right after this breakout, they're doing a vendor showcase and reception in the hallway. And then at 7 o'clock is when we're having our evening party and awards at Speakeasy. And you're asking yourself, Stacy, where is Speakeasy? Turn your badge over. It's going to be right there. It's going to be the address. It's literally like a block down the road, and which feels like 5 blocks in this weather. I get it. But it is at 7 o'clock. We hope everybody will be there. Go say hi to all of our vendors. Take all of their stuff. They do not want to ship it home with them or get it on the plane. So with that, thank you so much for our panel here for sustainability. We have Riley, Amanda, Bindu, and Ellie. Thank you so much. And it was the last one of the evening, too. So yeah, woohoo! That's all the...
JR here from the FinOps Foundation. Thank you for watching. Please go to FinOps.org if you want to get plugged into this amazing community. And of course, hit subscribe right here on YouTube to get all the future content. Hope to see you soon.